One room, one bed, one night that would change everything. William Carter stared at the hotel receptionist, rain still dripping from his coat. Beside him stood Candace Mitchell, his CEO, the most powerful woman in the company, the person who held his entire career in her hands. "I'm sorry, sir," the receptionist said, eyes darting between them. "We only have one room left." Outside, the storm howled. Every flight is grounded. Every hotel is fully booked. William was a black single father who lived for his daughter. Candace was the ice queen who let no one get close. What happened in that room? No one could have predicted it. Before we continue, let us know in the comment section where in the world you're tuning in from. We love seeing how far our stories reach. And if this story speaks to you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. 3 days earlier, William Carter sat in the conference room, trying to make himself invisible. It was a skill he had perfected over 6 years at Hartwell and Associates. Show up early, work harder than everyone else, and never ask for anything. The morning light cut through the glass walls as Candace Mitchell walked in. The room fell silent. At 38, she was the youngest CEO in the company's history, and every step she took seemed to remind people of that fact. Her heels clicked against the marble floor like a metronome counting down to someone's fate. "The Henderson Project," she announced, not bothering with greetings. "I need someone to accompany me to Chicago. 3 days, high stakes." Richard Hayes, the CFO, immediately leaned forward. He was the kind of man who had climbed the corporate ladder by stepping on others. And at 45, he guarded his position like a dragon hoarding gold. "I can arrange for someone from senior management," Richard offered, his eyes deliberately avoiding William's corner of the table. "I've already chosen." Candace's gaze swept across the room and landed on William. "Mr. Carter, your proposal last quarter saved us $3 million. I want that kind of thinking in Chicago." William felt every head turn toward him, some surprised, some skeptical, a few openly hostile. Richard's jaw tightened. "With all due respect, he doesn't have the experience. There are more suitable candidates." Candace didn't blink. "I choose people based on ability, Mr. Hayes, not seniority, not anything else." The implication hung in the air. William knew what Richard really meant. He had heard it in 1,000 different ways throughout his career. The subtle suggestions that he didn't quite belong, that his promotions were always just out of reach for reasons no one would say out loud. "The flight leaves tomorrow evening," Candace continued, already moving toward the door. "Don't be late." That night, William stood in his daughter's bedroom doorway, watching her arrange her stuffed animals on the bed. Serena was 6 years old, with her mother's eyes and her father's stubborn chin. She was the only reason he got out of bed some mornings. "3 days is a long time," Serena said, not looking at him. William sat on the edge of her bed. "I know, baby, but I'll call you every night. Just like always." "Promise?" "Promise." She picked up her favorite teddy bear, the one her mother had bought the day she was born, and held it against her chest. William watched her, seeing the shadow of his late wife in every small gesture. "Daddy," Serena said quietly, "are you ever sad?" The question hit him like a fist to the chest. "Why do you ask that?" "Because you don't smile like you used to." She finally looked up at him, her eyes too wise for a child her age. "In the old pictures with Mommy, you smile different, like you mean it." William pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her hair so she wouldn't see his eyes. 4 years since the accident. 4 years of pretending he was okay, of being strong for her, of building walls so high he'd forgotten what it felt like to let someone in. "I smile every time I see you," he whispered. "That's not the same," Serena said. "That's Daddy's smile. I want to see the real one again." He held her tighter, unable to answer. The next evening, William arrived at the airport 2 hours early, his small suitcase packed with exactly 3 days' worth of clothes. He found Candace already at the gate, her laptop open, her face illuminated by the screen's blue light. She acknowledged him with a brief nod. Nothing more. They sat in silence, separated by 3 empty seats and an ocean of hierarchy. William checked his phone every few minutes, waiting for Serena's nightly video call. His sister was watching her, but it wasn't the same. It was never the same. An hour before boarding, the first announcement came. Ladies and gentlemen, due to severe weather conditions, Flight 742 to Chicago has been delayed. William looked out the window. Dark clouds had swallowed the sky, and rain was beginning to hammer against the glass. By 9 o'clock, the delay became a cancellation. The airport descended into chaos. Hundreds of passengers crowded the service desks, their voices rising in frustration. William watched Candace navigate the crowd, her phone pressed to her ear, her expression unreadable. "Everything's booked," she said when she returned. "Every hotel within 20 miles. William had already checked. He knew. They tried 3 more hotels by phone, then 5 more. The storm had grounded every flight on the eastern seaboard, and thousands of stranded travelers had swept through the city like locusts. Finally, Candace found one room, a small hotel near the airport, the kind of place that didn't show up on the usual booking apps. "One room," she said, her voice flat. "It's all they have." The hotel lobby smelled of old carpet and air freshener. A single receptionist sat behind the desk, looking as exhausted as William felt. "I'm sorry," the young woman said, her eyes darting between them. "We only have one room available. One bed. I can offer extra blankets, but—" She trailed off, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. William felt the weight of it pressing down on him. A black man, a white female CEO, one hotel room in the middle of the night. He could already hear the whispers that would follow if anyone found out. Candace stood beside him, her face betraying nothing. She was waiting, he realized, watching to see what he would do. He thought about Serena. About the $3 million he'd saved the company. About the 6 years of being overlooked, underpaid, and underestimated. About the promise he'd made to his wife on her deathbed, that he would give their daughter a better life. This trip could change everything. One successful project with the CEO and doors that had always been closed might finally open. But if he refused, he would spend the night on an airport bench, show up to the meeting exhausted and unprepared, and watch the opportunity slip through his fingers like sand. Richard's voice echoed in his memory. "He doesn't have the experience." William straightened his shoulders. "I'll take the floor," he said. Candace's expression flickered, something that might have been surprise, or maybe respect. She turned to the receptionist. "We'll take it." The receptionist handed over a single key card, her relief evident. William picked up his suitcase and followed Candace toward the elevator, acutely aware of every step. His phone buzzed, a text from his sister. "Serena won't sleep. She's waiting for your call." William looked at the elevator doors closing in front of him, at Candace Mitchell standing rigid beside him, at the long night stretching ahead. He had made his choice, for Serena, for their future. He just didn't know yet what that choice would cost him. The hotel room was smaller than William had expected. A single queen bed dominated the space, flanked by a worn nightstand and a lamp that flickered when he turned it on. In the corner sat an old sofa, its cushions sagging from years of use. The wallpaper was peeling near the ceiling, and the window rattled with each gust of wind. Candace walked in first, her heels sinking into the thin carpet. She surveyed the room with the same expression she used in boardrooms, clinical, assessing, revealing nothing. "The bathroom is yours first," she said, already pulling out her laptop. "I have emails to send." William nodded and retreated to the small bathroom, grateful for even a few minutes alone. He splashed cold water on his face and stared at his reflection in the mirror. The fluorescent light made him look older, the shadows under his eyes deeper than usual. "What are you doing here?" he asked himself. One wrong move, one misunderstanding, and everything you've built could disappear. When he emerged, Candace had positioned herself on the bed, laptop open, typing with focused intensity. She had changed into a simple blouse and slacks, still professional, still armored. William made his way to the sofa. It creaked under his weight, and he could feel a spring pressing against his back. He pulled out his phone and checked the time. 9:47. Serena would be waiting. "I need to make a call," he said. "Is that—" "Go ahead." Candace didn't look up from her screen. William walked to the small balcony, sliding the glass door open just enough to step outside. The rain had softened to a drizzle, but the wind still carried a bitter chill. He pressed Serena's contact and waited. Her face appeared on the screen almost instantly, her eyes bright despite the late hour. "Daddy!" "Hey, baby girl." William felt something loosen in his chest at the sight of her. "Why aren't you asleep yet?" "I was waiting for you. Aunt Monica said the plane didn't fly." "That's right. There's a big storm, so I'm staying at a hotel tonight." Serena's face scrunched up in thought. "Is it a nice hotel?" William glanced back through the glass door at the cramped room, at Candace's rigid posture on the bed. "It's cozy. Daddy, I drew a picture today." Serena held up a piece of paper to the camera. "It's you and me at the park, but I couldn't draw your smile right." "What do you mean?" "I don't know what your real smile looks like anymore." Her voice was matter-of-fact, the way children deliver truths that cut deeper than any blade. "Can you smile so I can see?" William forced his lips upward. "How's this?" Serena shook her head. "That's not it. That's your tired smile. I want the one from the pictures with Mommy." Through the glass, William saw Candace's fingers stop moving on the keyboard. She was listening. He turned back to the screen, his throat tight. "Tell you what," he said. "When I come home, we'll practice smiling together. Deal?" "Okay, but you have to tell me a story first. I can't sleep without a story." William leaned against the balcony railing, letting the cold air ground him. "Once upon a time," he began, "there was a little princess named Serena who lived in a castle made of blankets and pillows." He wove the story from nothing, the way he did every night, a tale of a brave princess and a tired knight who fought dragons made of shadows and monsters made of worry. The knight always won, but he was always exhausted, always carrying his sword even when the battle was over. "The knight should take a nap," Serena interrupted. "He's too tired to fight anymore." "Maybe you're right," William said softly. "Maybe he should. And maybe he should find a friend. Knights shouldn't be alone." William's eyes burned. "Maybe," he whispered. "Good night, princess." "Good night, Daddy. I love you to the moon." "And back," he finished. "Always and back." He ended the call and stood in the darkness for a long moment, letting the rain wash over his face so he could pretend the wetness on his cheeks came from the storm. When William stepped back inside, Candace had closed her laptop. She sat with her hands folded in her lap, her eyes fixed on some point in the middle distance. "Serena," she said quietly. "That's a beautiful name." William froze by the glass door. In 6 years of working at the company, he had never heard Candace Mitchell make small talk. Never heard her acknowledge that her employees had lives outside the office. "Thank you," he managed. "My wife chose it." "She passed away." The question was direct but not unkind. William found himself moving toward the sofa, sinking back into its uncomfortable embrace. 4 years ago, car accident." The words came out flat, practiced. He had said them so many times they had lost their edges. "Serena was 2. She doesn't really remember her." Candace absorbed this information in silence. Then, unexpectedly, she spoke again. "You raise her alone?" "My sister helps when she can, but mostly, yeah, it's just us." "That must be Candace searched for the word. Difficult. William almost laughed. Difficult. Such a small word for something so immense. For the sleepless nights when Serena had nightmares about a mother she couldn't remember. For the school events, where he was the only father alone in a sea of couples. For the constant, grinding exhaustion of being everything to someone when you had nothing left to give. You get used to it, he said instead. Do you? The question hung in the air between them. William looked at Candace, really looked at her for the first time. Behind the armor of her position, behind the ice in her voice, he saw something he recognized. Loneliness. The same loneliness he saw in his own mirror every morning. No, he admitted. You don't. You just get better at pretending. Candace's mask cracked, just slightly. I wouldn't know about that. The raising children part, I mean. She looked down at her hands. I wouldn't know how to be responsible for someone else's happiness. It's terrifying, William said. Every single day. You wake up knowing that this little person depends on you for everything. And if you mess up, you won't. He looked at her, surprised by the certainty in her voice. I've seen your work, Candace continued. The way you approach problems, the care you put into every detail. Someone like that doesn't mess up the things that matter. William didn't know what to say. In 6 years, he had received exactly 2 compliments from upper management. Both had been followed immediately by requests for more work. What about you? He asked, the words escaping before he could stop them. You have family? Candace's expression shifted, a shadow passing over her features. My parents divorced when I was 10. Neither of them particularly wanted custody. I was an inconvenience to their new lives. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me valuable lessons. Her voice hardened slightly. Self-reliance, independence, how to need no one. That sounds lonely. Candace met his eyes. It is. The rain intensified outside, drumming against the window like 1,000 impatient fingers. In the dim light of the hotel room, the distance between CEO and employee seemed to dissolve, leaving behind just 2 people carrying wounds they had never shown anyone. You asked me once why I chose you for this project, Candace said. During the meeting, you were the only person in the room who didn't look at me like I was either an obstacle or an opportunity. You looked at me like I was just a person giving a presentation. You are a person. You'd be surprised how many people forget that. She leaned back against the headboard. In my position, everyone wants something. They smile because they want promotions. They agree because they want favor. I haven't had a genuine conversation in years, maybe longer. William thought about the walls he had built around himself, different from hers, but walls, nonetheless. Walls to protect Serena from seeing his pain. Walls to protect himself from hoping for anything beyond survival. My daughter asked me today if I was ever sad, he said. She's 6. She should be asking about unicorns and ice cream, not whether her father is falling apart. What did you tell her? Nothing. I couldn't. He rubbed his eyes. 4 years, and I still haven't figured out how to be happy without her mother. Some days I wonder if I'm even allowed to try. If moving on means betraying what we had. Candace was quiet for a moment. My mother used to say that people who stay stuck in the past are just afraid of the future. Was she right? Probably. She was also cruel and absent and completely unqualified to give advice on emotions. A ghost of a smile crossed Candace's lips. But even broken clocks are right twice a day. William found himself smiling too, a real smile, small but genuine. My wife used to say that. They talked until the rain stopped, somewhere around 3 in the morning. Not about work or projects or quarterly reports. About fear and loneliness and the weight of carrying worlds on their shoulders. About the masks they wore and the price of wearing them. Nothing happened that night. No kiss, no crossed lines, just two wounded people, finally seen by someone who understood. Morning light cut through the curtains with surgical precision. William woke on the sofa, his neck stiff, his back aching. Candace was already up, dressed in her CEO armor, her makeup perfect, and her walls fully reconstructed. "We should leave in an hour," she said, not looking at him. "The meeting starts at 10. William recognized the shift. The intimacy of the night had been filed away, locked behind the same professional facade she wore to boardrooms. He understood. He had his own armor to put back on. "Last night," he started, "was just two colleagues passing time during a storm." Candace's voice was crisp, final. "Nothing more." William nodded slowly. "Of course." They completed the Chicago trip in professional silence. The meeting was a success. The Henderson account signed, $3 million secured for the company. Candace was brilliant, commanding, untouchable. William provided support without overstepping, professional without being cold. But neither looked the other in the eye. A week later, William sat at his desk, trying to focus on a spreadsheet that had lost all meaning. The whispers had started 3 days ago, quiet at first, then growing like a virus through the office. "Did you hear? They shared a hotel room." "One bed. I heard it from accounting." "How do you think he really got this assignment?" Richard Hayes had found the expense report. 1 room, 2 names, 1 night. The CFO had made sure everyone knew, his concern dressed up as casual conversation. William felt the eyes on him everywhere he went, in meetings, in the elevator, in the break room where conversations stopped when he entered. He had worked 6 years to build a reputation on merit. One night had reduced it to rubble. The summons to Candace's office came on a Friday afternoon. William walked the familiar corridor, feeling like a man approaching his own execution. Candace sat behind her desk, her face unreadable. "Close the door." He did. "I want to promote you," she said without preamble. "Team lead position, effective immediately." William stared at her. "You can't be serious." "Your performance on the Henderson project was exceptional. You've earned this." "That's not how people will see it." He remained standing, his hands clenched at his sides. "They already think I got this assignment because of what happened in that hotel room?" Candace's voice was sharp. "Nothing happened." "It doesn't matter what happened. It matters what people believe." William felt something breaking inside him. "I have a daughter. A 6-year-old girl who will grow up hearing stories about her father. I will not let those stories be about how I slept my way to a promotion. I can't accept it." The words came out harder than he intended. "I won't. Not like this." Candace's composure cracked, just for a moment. Something like hurt flickered in her eyes before the ice returned. "Fine," she said quietly. "If that's your decision." William turned and walked out, the door clicking shut behind him with a sound like a coffin closing. That night he came home to find Serena waiting by the window, her nose pressed against the glass. "Daddy!" She ran to him, wrapping her arms around his legs. William knelt down and held her tight, breathing in the smell of her shampoo, feeling her small heart beating against his chest. "You look sad," Serena said, pulling back to study his face. "Your eyes look like when Mommy went away." The words hit him like a physical blow. He had spent 4 years trying to protect her from his grief, and she had seen through him all along. "I'm okay, baby." "You always say that." Serena touched his cheek with her small hand. "But I don't think it's true." William carried her to the couch and sat with her in his lap, the television dark, the house quiet. "Daddy made a mistake," he whispered into her hair. "I've been so busy trying to be a good father that I forgot to be happy. And now you're growing up watching someone who's just surviving." "What's surviving mean?" "It means not really living. Just getting through each day." Serena was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Maybe you need a friend, like the knight in the story." William closed his eyes. "Out of the mouths of babes." "Maybe," he said, "but Daddy doesn't know how to do that anymore." "I can teach you," Serena offered. "Making friends is easy. You just have to be brave and say hi." William held his daughter tighter, wondering when she had become wiser than him, wondering if he would ever learn to take his own advice. The advice he wove into bedtime stories about knights who were allowed to rest, who were allowed to find companions, who were allowed to be happy. Wondering if it was already too late. Candace Mitchell sat alone in her corner office, the city lights glittering beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. It was past 10 o'clock, and the building had emptied hours ago. She hadn't turned on the lights. The darkness felt appropriate. Her laptop glowed on the desk, displaying an email she had read 17 times. A congratulatory note from the board about the Henderson deal. $3 million secured. Another victory for the youngest CEO in company history. She closed the laptop and the room fell into shadow. 3 weeks had passed since that night in the hotel room. 3 weeks since she had heard William's voice through the glass door, telling his daughter a story about a tired night. 3 weeks since someone had looked at her and seen something other than a title. Candace pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts. Hundreds of names, board members, investors, department heads. Not a single person she could call just to talk. She thought about what William had said that night. "You get used to it. You just get better at pretending." She had been pretending for 28 years. Since her parents' divorce. Since the day she learned that love was just another word for leverage. That people left when you became inconvenient. She had built an empire out of that lesson. An empire of success and solitude. And now, sitting in the dark, she realized she had won everything and gained nothing. The following Saturday, Candace found herself in a neighborhood she had no business visiting. The park was 3 blocks from her apartment, one of those small green spaces tucked between residential streets, the kind of place families gathered on weekends. She told herself she was just walking, getting exercise, clearing her head. She recognized William immediately. He sat on a bench near the swings, watching a little girl pump her legs higher and higher into the air. Serena. Even from a distance, Candace could see the resemblance, the same determined set of the jaw, the same intensity in her eyes. William looked exhausted, the kind of bone-deep weariness that no amount of sleep could cure. He was smiling, but it was the smile Candace had seen in the office, professional, practiced, hollow. "Higher, Daddy," Serena called out. "Push me higher." William rose from the bench and walked behind the swing, giving his daughter gentle pushes. Candace watched him force his expression into something approaching joy, watched him try to be present when everything about his posture screamed that he was drowning. "You're doing it wrong," Serena announced, dragging her feet to stop the swing. "What do you mean?" "Your smile. It's the fake one again." Serena turned around on the swing to face her father. "You're smiling like you're sad inside." William knelt down to meet his daughter's eyes. Candace couldn't hear what he said, but she saw his shoulders shake. She saw Serena reach out and pat his cheek with her small hand, comforting him when it should have been the other way around. A 6-year-old girl carrying the weight of her father's grief because he refused to share it with anyone else. Candace understood then what she had to do. Monday morning, Candace called an emergency meeting of the executive board. Richard Hayes arrived last, his expression smug, clearly expecting another opportunity to undermine her. "I'll keep this brief," Candace began, standing at the head of the table. "Effective immediately, I'm implementing several changes. First, William Carter is being transferred to the Western Regional Division under Margaret Collins's supervision." Richard's eyes narrowed. "Running from the scandal?" Candace ignored him. "Second, Mr. Carter will be evaluated for promotion based on standard KPIs over the next quarter. His performance will be assessed by his new department head with no input from me." "Convenient," Richard muttered. Candace turned to face him directly. "Which brings me to my third point. I'm requesting a formal investigation into the source of certain rumors that have circulated through this company over the past 3 weeks. Rumors that originated from confidential expense reports." The color drained from Richard's face. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The expense report from the Chicago trip was filed under sealed accounts." Candace's voice was ice. "Only 3 people had access, myself, the CFO, and the accounting director. I didn't leak it. Patricia in accounting has been with this company for 20 years without a single complaint. That leaves you." Richard sputtered. "This is ridiculous. You can't possibly—" "I'm not finished." Candace placed both hands on the table, leaning forward. "You've spent the past 3 weeks destroying the reputation of an employee who has given this company 6 years of exemplary service. You did it because he threatened your comfortable position, because I chose him over your hand-picked candidate, because you couldn't stand the idea that someone might advance based on merit instead of politics." The room had gone silent. The other board members watched with expressions ranging from shock to barely concealed satisfaction. "Richard Hayes, you are suspended pending a full HR investigation into your conduct." Candace straightened. "Please surrender your access badge to security on your way out." Richard's face contorted with rage. "You're making a mistake. The board won't stand for this." Candace looked around the table. No one spoke in his defense. "Goodbye, Richard." 3 months later, William received his promotion, team lead of the Western Regional Marketing Division, effective April 1st. The announcement came through official channels approved by Margaret Collins, based entirely on his quarterly performance metrics. No one could question it. No one could whisper that he hadn't earned it. He was sitting in a coffee shop near the office, celebrating alone with a cup that had gone cold, when Candace walked through the door. She looked different outside the office. Softer, somehow. Dressed in jeans and a simple sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She spotted him and walked over with a hesitation he had never seen from her before. "Is this seat taken?" William stared at her. "I don't think that's a good idea. You're not my employee anymore." Candace pulled out the chair across from him and sat down. "Different department, different reporting structure. I made sure of it." "I know. I heard about what you did." William wrapped his hands around his cold cup. "The investigation, Richard's suspension, all of it. He deserved worse." "Maybe." William finally met her eyes. "Why did you do it?" Candace was quiet for a moment, her fingers tracing patterns on the table. "I saw you at the park, a few weeks ago. You and Serena." William tensed. "You were there?" "I wasn't following you." "I live nearby. I was just—" She searched for the right words. "I saw her ask you to smile. I saw you try. And I realized that we're both doing the same thing, carrying everything alone because we're too scared to let anyone help." "Candace, I don't know how to do this." The words came out in a rush, as if she had been holding them back for weeks. "I don't know how to be a partner. I don't even know how to be a friend. The last time I let someone get close, I was 10 years old, and they chose their new families over me." She took a breath. "But I want to learn. If you'll let me." William thought about Serena's words. "Maybe you need a friend. Making friends is easy. You just have to be brave and say hi." "I've spent 4 years trying to be enough for my daughter," he said slowly. "Being both parents. Being everything. And somewhere along the way, I convinced myself that wanting anything for myself would mean taking something away from her. And now I have a 6-year-old who's worried about whether her father is happy." William's voice cracked. "She shouldn't have to carry that, and I can't keep pretending that surviving is the same as living." Candace reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. Her touch was tentative, uncertain, the touch of someone who had forgotten how to reach for another person. "I can't promise I won't mess this up," she said quietly. "I probably will. Multiple times." William looked at her hand on his. At this woman who had torn down empires to give him a fair chance, who had confronted her own board to defend his name, who sat across from him now, stripped of armor, asking for nothing but permission to try. "Serena wants to meet the person who tells stories worse than me," he said. Candace's lips curved into a smile. "I'm terrible at stories. She'll love that." 1 month later, Candace knocked on William's front door with a bottle of wine and a fear she couldn't name. He opened it wearing an apron dusted with flour, and for a moment they just looked at each other. "She's been asking about you all day," William said, stepping aside to let her in. The apartment was small but warm. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator. Toys were scattered across the living room floor with the beautiful chaos of a home that was actually lived in. Serena appeared from the hallway, her eyes widening when she saw Candace. "You're the lady from Daddy's work." "I'm Candace." She knelt down to Serena's height. "And you must be the princess from the stories." Serena giggled. "Daddy told you about those?" "He did. He said you're braver than any knight." Dinner was simple. Pasta with homemade sauce, garlic bread that was slightly burned on the edges, a salad that Serena picked at suspiciously. They talked about school and cartoons and whether dragons were real. Candace listened more than she spoke, watching the easy rhythm between father and daughter, feeling like an observer of something precious. After dinner, Serena tugged on Candace's sleeve. "Can you tell me a bedtime story?" Candace looked at William helplessly. "I'm not very good at making things up." "That's okay," Serena said matter-of-factly. "Daddy can help you. He helps me with everything." They sat together on Serena's bed, the three of them. Candace stumbled through a story about a queen who had forgotten how to smile and a little princess who taught her by making funny faces. It was clumsy and awkward, and nothing like William's polished tales. Serena loved it. "Your turn, Daddy," she demanded when Candace finished. "You have to smile now, a real one." William looked at his daughter, at Candace, sitting on the edge of the bed with flour still on her sweater from helping him cook. At this strange, fragile, beautiful thing they were building together. And he smiled. Not the tired smile, not the professional smile, not the smile he wore like armor to hide the breaking underneath. The real one. Serena's face lit up. "That's it! That's the one from the pictures with Mommy!" William pulled her into a hug, and over his daughter's shoulder he met Candace's eyes. She was crying. Silently, her mascara smudging in ways the CEO of Hartwell & Associates would never have allowed. "Thank you," he mouthed. She shook her head. "Thank you." Outside, the spring rain began to fall. The same rain that had stranded them in a hotel room 3 months ago. But this time, they weren't trapped. They were exactly where they were supposed to be. Love doesn't come to save us. It comes to remind us that we deserve to be saved, even when we've forgotten.